Ooh, week 8, so plenty of people to talk about for the Waiver Wire Show. I'm Dustin, welcome to Fantasy Smack Talk. Before we get into it though, DraftKings, get in there and sign up and play. Hey, if you're 1-7, go ahead and get into some daily leagues. Sign up using the promo code FST, deposit at least $5 or more. They'll give you an entry into a free cash game. What's not to like about that? Follow the link in the card or the link in the description as well if you want to do it that way rather than the promo code. So, real quick, moment of silence for the Le'Veon Bell owners. Moment of silence for the Matt Forte owners. Brutal. I had Bell in one league, so that stung a little bit. But DeAngelo Williams is the biggest pickup this week, only owned in about 25% of leagues. You know, he's the clear-cut guy out there from here on out for the rest of the season. Proved at the beginning of the year that he can be serviceable, so obviously it's a big downgrade from Bell, but if you can get him, he's still going to be borderline RB1, RB2 value for the rest of the way. Langford for Chicago. You know, he doesn't have quite as much appeal in terms of picking him up because he's probably more of a short-term solution guy because Forte will probably be back this year. You know, these injuries can be a little tricky, but, you know, probably 3 weeks maybe. But, you know, if you need to win now, Langford, great pickup. Wanted to talk about Alfred Blue. I still think he's a must-add in all leagues. I think he's getting disrespected a little bit. I like that they used him in the passing game. Blue's only owned in 60% of leagues, so I thought that was kind of surprising. They used him in the passing game. He led the backfield in carries. He's the best of the bunch that's left. I mean, there's not much out there. Blue isn't going to blow you away, but he still needs to be owned in all leagues. He's going to be an RB3, RB4-ish for the rest of the way this year. Some running backs to talk about in deeper leagues. Kendall Gaskins for the 49ers. I mean, talk about the best that's all that's left. I mean, the 49ers are in dire needs of running backs. I think they probably will sign someone this week, but we'll see who they get. But Gaskins, right now, if Hyde can't go, looks to be the guy that would play for them week 9, and then they have their bye week 10. So very much short-term solution, but you know, he could be a decent desperation flex play this week if you need somebody. David Cobb, I want to talk about him. You know, I've been talking about Andrews a little bit over the last few weeks as a guy that, you know, has a little bit of value right now. Cobb's going to come in, and I do think Cobb has a decent chance to take over the majority of the workload, but I'm not expecting a ton from Cobb, but he's, at this point, I do think he does, you know, go over Andrews in terms of the Tennessee running back to own, but I don't think it's necessarily, the problems go deeper than the running backs in Tennessee. I mean, I don't think Cobb's going to just come in here and instantly blow people away. They're saying he's overweight. Long story short, though, he's worth picking up just to put on your bench to see what happens in deeper leagues. Christine Michael with Dallas. With all the weird reports about Joseph Randle, I don't really understand what all that's about. But this puts Michael as the clear-cut backup to one of the most injury-prone players in NFL history. So I like Michael because the starting running back for the Cowboys, especially once Romo's back, is going to have a lot of value. So Michael is a huge upside guy to put on your bench and just wait for that McFadden injury. And then Orleans Darkwa, I still do want to talk about him real quick. He was on to something week 8 before he got hurt. He was getting goal line carries, which I like. He's still someone I think is worth an add to your bench for a high upside running back. So real quick, I want to talk about him. Receivers, let's talk about Willie Snead. Must add in all leagues at this point. I think he's right there with Cooks in terms of the receiver that has the most value on New Orleans. The Saints look like they're getting things going on that offense. Will look like they week 8 they definitely got things going. But moving forward, you know, you got to be excited about them figuring things out and getting things going. Snead, I think he needs to be owned in all leagues. His upside is huge, especially because the offense that he plays on. Now another guy who has a decent upside but doesn't play on as good of an offense, but Aiken for Baltimore, the Steve Smith injury. Probably should have done a moment of silence for him as well at the beginning of the show, but another big name injury. Aiken's going to be the biggest beneficiary with that one. You know, he's only on 20% of leagues. I think he's a must-add in all leagues. Tavon Austin, I think, is a must-add in all leagues as well. They're finding the way to get the ball in his hands, and he's producing. He's showing why he was a formal first-round pick. Stevie Johnson, another guy. You know, Keenan Allen went down with injury. They're saying this could be a multi-week injury for Keenan Allen, so Stevie Johnson, I think He's more of a deeper league guy, but he's a guy that I like as an ad because he's going to give you a lot of short-term value with still some potential for long-term. So, he's not just a guy that you're picking up for the next few weeks. He could be a guy that you have on the team for the rest of the year. Quarterback Derek Carr, we got to start respecting this guy. I mean, I know he's an Oakland quarterback. They've been so terrible for so long, just that offense in general. But Derek Carr is legit. I think he's right there on the cusp of QB1 at this point. Only on 40% of leagues. We got to stop disrespecting him in the fantasy world. Benjamin Watson at tight end. We weren't really sure what to do when he broke out a couple weeks ago, if it was for real. Then he had an okay game, and then he blew up again. He's for real. He's a must-add in all leagues. And then Vernon Davis. Very interesting. Report came out today. He got traded to Denver, and I think a lot of people are going to overreact a little bit on this one. This doesn't instantly put Vernon Davis back into tight end 1 status. I mean, you got to think, there's mouths to feed out there already in Denver. They haven't really been throwing the ball all that well in terms of, getting into scoring touchdowns. I mean, Manning looked decent in week 8, but they haven't really thrown for that many yards. I think Vernon Davis, obviously it puts him back on the fantasy map, but don't go crazy thinking you found your new tight end 1. I think he's still top 15, but I don't know if he's quite top 10. And then my pick up and play defense, I'm going with Cincinnati this week. They're available in a decent amount of leagues. They're on a short week. They're at home against Cleveland. And I think, there's a chance Manziel might start with that. And if he doesn't start, I think McCown is going to be playing very sore if McCown does play. So I like the Bengals to win the Battle of Ohio. And I think whoever does start at quarterback, I think the Bengals will get to them and have a decent fantasy week for your defense. Real quick, too, though, any type of 2-quarterback league, pick up Johnny Manziel now because everyone in Cleveland wants to see Johnny Manziel play. And if he plays and plays well on Thursday, we could instantly have a quarterback controversy. Come on, we all want Johnny to play. I mean, come on, get him in there. That's it. Got questions, post them in the forums. Brent is back from Aruba, so we will be back later in the week for our Fantasy Fix show and our DraftKings show. Sign up for DraftKings. Good luck on the waiver wire.